Okay, enough theory. Let's make something now. Here we've got a program where the user inputs whatever the temperature degrees is Celsius, and the program will output what is the Fahrenheit. So if I put in 28 degrees, it tells me that it's 82.4 Fahrenheit. So that's in Scratch. In Python, when I run the program, again it asks me, I'll put in 21 this time. It tells me it's 70 degrees, well, close enough. And when I run this one, let's say I want to know what 40 degrees Celsius is, and it tells me it's 104. All right, so let's look at how we make this in Scratch first, then in Python, then in JavaScript. Okay, in Scratch, I just got a backdrop, choose backdrops. I chose a chalkboard, nice and easy in Scratch. We've got the flag here to trigger, so if we click on this on its own, that will run. If we put it with the event flag, or then whenever we click on the green flag, it runs the event. Now, I could put in here, enter degrees Celsius, but I've got nowhere to type in. So it's telling me what it wants from the user, but I've got nowhere to type. So we need a different block. We need an input type. So if we go to sensing and we get the ask block, now this is essentially the same, except when we put this in and we run it, we now get the text, but now I've got somewhere to put in a number. Now, next question is, what happened to my number? The program has just moved on. So if we look next to the answer, there's a built-in variable here. We can hit the checkbox and we can see that we've got this variable called answer that's storing a value of the user input. So if I put in 15, that value changes. So exactly like we talked about in the variables video before, the outer container stays the same. It's the value inside that changes. And this is the part that's going to be crucial to running the program. To make this program accurately, we need a formula. We're going to do a quick little bit of research on Google to get the right formula. We can see here we've got this chart here. So if I put in 0 degrees, that becomes 32. If I put in 25, I get 77. But what's handy here is this formula. So this formula is saying, whatever degrees, multiply that by 9 divided by 5. And then we add 32 to get the degrees Fahrenheit. So we've got our answer variable that we can use. That's the user input part of the formula. That's the Celsius input. And if we go to operators, so here we've got plus, minus, multiply, and divide. If we grab the multiply and the divide, we're going to say user input times 9 divided by 5 and place that into here, and then we want to add 32 to that whole lot. So plus 32, and we can drop that into here, and all we need now is the say block, drop that in and test our program. So we'll keep this up here for testing. So I'll put in 0 and I get 32 as the answer, which is always a good test. 25. So I'm going to leave it as simple as this for now. After we do all three, I'm going to come back and we're going to use some concatenation to flesh out our answers a bit more to the user. So in Python, we want to write out some pseudocode. So here are the steps that we're going to follow. We're going to get the user input. We're going to convert the user input into a number because by default, Python accepts user input as words, as a string of text. So if I put in 32, it's not the number 32, it's written the word of 32. Python is going to have trouble putting that into the formula. So we need to then convert it to a number. We'll do a quick test to check that conversion worked, that our user input is now a number and not a string. And then we're going to do the formula and then we output. So first step is to get user input. So we can use the input method, and inside of there, we're just going to put some text to tell the user what we want. So enter degrees Celsius, and we can see now that we now have a place to input. However, we haven't got anywhere to store it. So like we did in Scratch with the answer variable, we're going to create a variable. We'll call it answer to keep it similar. So now, if we print out the value of this variable, we can test that it outputs what we've input. Okay, so we no longer need that test. Second step, convert user input into an integer. So let's just test what the current input is. So we've got a type method. So at the moment, that variable we've created, so that converts it to a type, and we want to output it so that we can see, so we need to print as well. Run this. If I put in 30, it tells me it's a string, which is words. So now we need to convert it. So I'm going to leave that there so we can see the whole conversion process. So we need to convert answer into an integer. So I'm going to say answer is now an integer version of answer. And again, I'm going to print out the type to see what it looks like at this point in the program. So if I put in 25, it was a string here. Then we can see after the conversion, it's an integer. So now I'm satisfied that we no longer need that or that. Gotten the user input, stored it in a variable called answer, and we've converted that variable into an integer. We've done the test. We no longer actually need that. So now it's time to do the formula. So the formula was user input multiplied by 9 divided by 5, and then we want to add 32 to all of that. So this is going to be stored in a new variable called Fahrenheit. And now we output the value of that variable Fahrenheit. Now I know that 0 degrees Celsius is going to be 32, so that's going to be my first test. Put in 0, I get 32. So I'm satisfied that this is going to work. I want to do one more test. So if I put in 30 here, I get 86. And so if I run this again and I get 30, I get 86. Again, we can come back to this and do a more elaborate concatenation in the output, but I want to press on to the JavaScript to get this coding part done first. So in JavaScript, the same pseudocode. Get user input, convert the user input into an integer. In JavaScript, we don't have to do this so strictly. However, I want to just set a good practice and just get you into the habit. You might find down the track when you're debugging, the issue might be integer conversion. Okay, so we're just going to do the check that our conversion worked. Then we do our formula, and then we output the Fahrenheit. Okay, so get user input. So in JavaScript, it's prompt. And if we run this now, we get the prompt box, but the value is not stored anywhere, it disappears. So we need to store it in a variable called answer. So we need the var keyword in JavaScript to declare the variable in the first place. When we're using answer throughout the program, now we no longer need the var keyword. That's just the initialization part. Okay, so we're going to convert user input into an integer. So here, answer now has the value of the parseInt of answer. So convert it to an integer. So now we want to do a quick test. So I'm going to do the type test before and after. In JavaScript, it's type of. I'm going to do document dot write answer at this point, and we want the type of answer at this point before we do the conversion, and we want to see it afterwards as well. All right, let's run and see. 25 degrees Celsius, string number. So what happens with JavaScript is it doesn't see the white space and just runs horizontally. So I need to add in a break space here. So now I can see the user input was here. It was a string at this point. By default, it was a string. Any user input is a string by default. We want to convert it to a number, and we just did the quick test to see. So now that we've done the testing, we can remove that and that. And we've done our check. Okay, so now we do the formula. And now we want to output, so we document write Fahrenheit. We document write the value of this variable called Fahrenheit now that it's stored the user input and gone through this formula. 30 degrees, 86. And 0 is 32. Okay, so now I want to go back into all three programs and just concatenate the output a little bit further.